Another interesting election upcoming is Senator John McCain's. Take a look at one of his latest campaign ads.
Drug and human smuggling, home invasions, murder.
We're outmanned. Of all the illegals in America, more than half come through Arizona.
Have we got the right plan?
Plan's perfect. You bring troops, state, county, and local law enforcement together.
And complete the dang fence.
It'll work this time. Senator, you're one of us.
Complete the Danged Fence is the actual name of his actual policy position. You can find it at completethedangedfence.com. They thought to register it. Post-politics time. We're joined by Mike Shear, White House correspondent for the Washington Post. And I want to start with the Kagan rollout. We saw the vice president today push back very aggressively on this notion around the military recruiters. How does the White House feel like it's gone in this initial 24 hours or so?
I think they think it's gone pretty well. Look, the whole point of a rollout for a nomination is to define the person that you're rolling out. These people, generally speaking, are not well known. They're well known in Washington, but not across the country. The whole idea is define the narrative. And so far, what they've begun to do is to kind of define her as an intelligent, smart, but sort of still connected to the American people kind of judge. Or that's how they say she'll be. And what you saw a little bit of was the potential opponents waiting a little bit, right? They're not going to jump in yet. They're not going to bash her from the right or the left. They're all sort of waiting to see how it plays out.
And what about the president's liberal base on this? There seems to be some concern that she's not as liberal as John Paul Stevens and therefore actually going to move the court to the right. Has the White House sort of completed their work with their base in advance of this, or no, that's going to have to be a process throughout this whole nomination process?
I think in some ways that's the more interesting process for the next 6 or 7 weeks, is to see how they finally get the entire sort of left-wing liberal base to kind of fall in behind. I don't think there's any question in the White House's view that they will ultimately. And some of these groups, let's face it, part of the reason for being, they have to prove that they have a reason for
right.
being, and part of that is to kind of make sure that their constituencies know they're pushing the envelope on their issues. And she's someone that you can't, if you're an abortion rights person, you can't necessarily point to a whole host of issues or decisions or statements that, that prove that she's one of you. So that's why they're kind of taking a wait-and-see attitude.
Well, George W. Bush was pretty confident he could get them to fall in line for Harriet Miers. I want to ask you about
Until he wasn't.
Until he wasn't. Right. And you never know what could come
up. Exactly. I want to talk a little Pennsylvania politics. Arlen Specter in a very tight race. He's got a new ad cut with President Obama on it. The president really said he'd work it for Arlen Specter and make sure that he didn't have to worry about the primary or the general election. Now we're hearing from the vice president, Obama may not even go in the closing week. How much is the president on the line here over this race?
Well, look, think back not too long ago to when the president went up at a last-minute campaign stop up to Massachusetts. That didn't go so well for them. At the end of the day, he may well still go because I think loyalty is a big thing for this president, and certainly Arlen Specter took a big gamble by jumping parties, and so maybe that will ultimately do it. But whether or not the president's visit actually changes the dynamic down there, I mean, that race has been trending in one direction, not a good direction for Arlen Specter for some time, and it's not clear whether the president can even change that.
And the political mojo in the White House kind of on the line here, and different than Martha Coakley and Scott Brown, where there was a lot of blame to go around. This White House recruited Arlen Specter to get to the other side of the aisle and said, we're going to be there for you. If they lose this, I mean, that's some serious egg on their face.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, although, let's face it, what the White House will say is what they always say in the aftermath of these things, which is...
He's a bad candidate?
He's a bad candidate, or local things matter. And that'll be their line.
That's and Arkansas as well next week. It'll be a couple of races where you've got, a more liberal challenger up against an establishment candidate backed by the White House.
Right. And, the other thing that I have to say, Arlen Specter's up with this ad,
right.
But the other side is also up with another ad, which of course features Arlen Specter and
George other president.
Bush, the other president, also praised. So you've got two ads with presidents praising the same candidate.
And it'll all be about local factors later on. I love it. Mike Shear from the Washington Post. Post Politics, our new partnership this week. Thanks for being here.
Sure.
Thank you very much. That does it for this edition of Top Line. Be sure to click us on again tomorrow.
Twitter.com/The Note. We're right here. What do you think about John McCain's ad?
Dang it.
Dang it.